Hey, guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another live stream, another show. In today's show, we're going to be talking about the good, the bad, the ugly of living abroad. And I am here with my really good friend, Ryan. He's also, an American expat in a sense, right? Or, well, he'll tell us to another live stream, another show. he'll, he'll tell us a little bit more about himself in a few seconds. Some of you guys might know him already, some of you guys don't know him. Regardless, we're going to get to know him a little bit more, and we're also going to go on ahead and talk about what life is like outside of the USA. What life is like for us immigrants, for us Americans living abroad, living somewhere else, living disconnected from, well, the USA. Hey, let's get right into it. Let's introduce Ryan, from my best life Paraguay, and go ahead, to tell us a little bit more about yourself. Let the audience know who you are and where you're from and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, my man. So I'm Ryan Aranda. My channel is My Best Life Paraguay. And just before I get into that, just to let you guys know, I've interviewed Jose on my channel and vice versa. So, if you guys want a little bit more backstory, you guys can certainly check out those videos. And I talk about my overall story. But yeah, I guess the quick version of my story is I was born here in Paraguay. And I was adopted at 2 years old. So I lived my whole life in Wisconsin, in the States. And I met my biological family here 13 years ago in 2012. And then I've been coming every single year since then to visit family. And I fell in love with the country. I fell in love with everything about Paraguay. I knew that I always wanted to live here, right? But I always kind of thought that it was going to be more of a retirement thing. But with the pandemic, there was I went virtual in my job, and then I started realizing that it might be more of a possibility for me to. Anyways, I moved down here last year in July of 2024, making it a little bit over 15 months now. A year and about 3, going on 4 months. So I've been here a good amount of time. I haven't been back to the U.S. yet, and I'm loving it. Everything is honestly that much better in here in Paraguay and in Latin America in general, for reasons that I'm sure we're going to get into. But yeah, that's my basic story. And right now, I am working in a sales role virtually, right? So that's how I'm able to continue life here. And one of the biggest reasons, besides a lot of the other ones, is the cost of living. So I'm renting a beautiful house built up to the year, and it's under 400 a month. And my other bills are quite low as well. So that's one of the best rewards for when you do get abroad as well. So I'll pass it back to you, and then whatever you want to talk about, we can.
Yeah. Let's talk about For example, how old are you, man? Because for example, when I came out here a little over 7 years ago to Mexico, I was 36 years old. I just had a birthday recently, so I'm 44 right now. It's crazy how time flies, right? But for you, you look very young. You look probably younger than me. So I think, yeah, younger than me. So how old are you? And again, like when you came out here to Paraguay, when you left the USA, you didn't have a job, right? I mean, you got the job afterwards. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because, I tell people all the time, it's like, hey, if you're going to move abroad, make sure you have some sort of income. Make sure you have something, anything, because you're not going to just get a job, in Paraguay or get a job in El Salvador or Mexico or wherever you're going to go to. You're going to have some sort of income, and then gradually, you'll figure something else out that's going to bring you more income. So what was your scenario? First of all, yeah, your age, and then, your scenario when it came to that.
Yeah, so I'm 34. I was born in 91, for some context. And yeah, so when I came here, I was 33. And yeah, so, my online gig I've been doing for the last half year, just past the 6 month mark now. But I kind of, I was pretty crazy. I came here with savings, and I wanted to give myself a trial run for about a year. Well, more than that. It was going to be about a year, and up on pretty much until now, where I was going to make the decision, can I land something online? And I knew that it was a possibility because I did have uh, work experience online, so it wasn't like a an insane uh, uh, impossibility. I knew that since I've had experience, it could be possible. But the blessings kind of came because of my YouTube channel. Just gonna be
Mm,
honest,
okay.
So it was actually a subscriber of mine who hit me up because I was contemplating going back to the U.S. To be able to eventually come back here to Paraguay. And I was offered an opportunity, a sales opportunity, and now that's how I'm able to continue down here. And I really don't have plans to go back to the U.S. I've talked about this in depth, but the biggest reasons are personal for visiting friends and family. There's pretty much nothing culturally like that that's really tying me back to the US besides some foods, but that you can't get here. But no, I'm gonna meet up with my parents in Panama because it's kind of a halfway point between Paraguay and the US. So that'll be happening next year. And that was the biggest reason that I would have gone back. But it's very far, like on the opposite end of the world here, pretty much. Very far south in South America. So it's not exactly convenient to just go back to the US. Plus, I also know the pricing in the US. So, if I go there and I visit for 2 weeks, well, that's 2 weeks that I would spend in probably 2 months here. So, the money that I am making, I would much rather spend, meeting up with people in Latin America and travel through other countries that are adjacent and close by. So, that's where I'm at with all that.
Yeah, because you're again for people that don't know, where Paraguay is. Paraguay, it's in South America, but it's you're right next to Uruguay, you're right next to Argentina, you're right next to Chile, so you're all the way in the southern tip, right? Base almost at the southern tip, right? Of South America, and like you said originally at the start of the interview, that you come from Wisconsin. That's originally where you're from. So I can't even imagine like how long the flights, right, must be from Paraguay all the way up to, and how many connections you got to make and all that stuff. So it's probably inconvenient. But as you said, it's a hop and a skip just to go to Brazil even, right? Isn't it like Brazil like right next to you as well, or
Yeah, so we're bordered by Bolivia to the north,
okay,
Brazil to the east, and Argentina to the south and the west. So those are our bordering countries, but we're an hour, 2 hours away from flights to Montevideo, Uruguay, good 2 hours away from Chile, Santiago, 2 hours away on a flight from Sao Paulo or Rio de Janeiro. So Paraguay is a wonderful centralized place for that kind of travel. I mean, guys have told me that they've gotten plane tickets like $200 to some of these places,
wow.
like round trip. And some of these countries, not all of them, but some of them are cost efficient
Mm.
to visit. And like not compared to the U.S., which is not cost efficient. uh, so it's very centralized, and a lot of people don't know this as well. But here in South America is part of the Mercosur, um, which means that once you get your cedula, which is your national ID card, you're able to pretty much freely travel to all these countries. It's almost like a European Union kind of deal. Um, you're going to need a passport, yeah, obviously, if you want to do plane travel. But if you're driving, you can just get there to Argentina or across the border to Brazil with your national ID card. I mean, half the time they don't even check; they just let you go. but yeah, I mean that it's a powerful document, right? The your national ID card because you can go pretty much anywhere through South America,
And
besides like Venezuela or
okay,
something
oh
like that.
yeah, okay. Well, and I wanted to ask you a question. Like, in order for you to get that special ID card, do you need to be a citizen of one of these countries, or can you get it as a resident as well?
Yeah, so I was pretty blessed because I got to jump to permanent residency and well, pretty much citizenship off of birthright. But for majority of people who don't have ties to the country, they have to go through temporary residency, which you will eventually, even with temporary residency, you will get a national ID card.
Okay.
The only thing to jump to permanent is you're gonna have to come down here 2 years later and then just finish off the process. But then once you're in permanent, you're locked in, and then it's just as simple as once every 10 years, renewing your ID card, getting your picture taken, and then you're all good to go. So
Oh,
Paraguay is really a lot of people want to come because the ease of residency
mm,
here. And yeah, it's not too expensive compared to other places. You also not like Mexico, but you don't have to prove. I believe the word is solvency
mm.
to like what you're making. You don't have to show any of that. Also, what's really nice about Paraguay is you don't have to pay any taxes on foreign income. So I'm working for a UK company, and I don't have to pay taxes on that. Now, if I were working for a company in Paraguay, then you do, but nothing is over. There's no tax in Paraguay over 10%. So some of us who are paying 30%, something like that in the States. I mean, other countries are paying up to like 40, 50%, which is ridiculous. But it's much less. um, even if you were to have to pay taxes. So it's yeah. There's a lot of reasons why people come to Paraguay. For simplicity of being able to be here, but then also cultural reasons as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean Paraguay. Again, it's like a little hidden gem, right? That's now kind of like being discovered. Because look, honestly, I mean, I knew about Paraguay, I knew where it was, all that stuff, but I didn't know anything until I met you. When we started talking, you told me about, like, for example, the weather, because again, it's right next to Argentina. Uruguay is down south, and so down south usually it's really cold. But you have told me that it's really warm up there. On top of that, like again, the quality of life. There's so many benefits to it. And now, as you were talking about the residency, that's a very important thing, because out here in Mexico for a long time, because of after the whole COVID thing, people were getting a residency to come to Mexico very easily. It was just it was super duper easy. But since the beginning of this year, like around March, getting residency in Mexico has become extremely difficult again. And even though some of us out here in Mexico think that by next year they're gonna relax those residency laws again, we don't know. Honestly, we just don't know. They might make them worse. Honestly. But there are other countries out there, such as Paraguay, where you can just go out there and basically just prove, right, that you live there, you want to live there, and just pay some fees, and before you know it, you're a resident. And so for a lot of people, that's like a big monkey off their back, right? Or like a big relief, because not everybody is as crazy as me, or you know what I mean, that just came to Mexico without even thinking about residency. And then I figured it out later. Thank God that I met my sweetheart, and I was able to marry her, and I was able to get residency that way. But otherwise, I mean, it would have been a lot more difficult for me, just like for a lot of people. So that's like a very important thing, and I'm glad that you touched on that, because I wasn't even thinking about that. For a lot of people that are looking right now. I mean, look, again, just being honest. The reason we're doing this, interview, we're talking about this, is simply because, again, as things get worse in the USA, just being honest. Again, you're from Wisconsin. You're dealing with things up there. I'm from Florida. I lived in other parts as well of the USA. Everyone's dealing with something in the USA these days, and for a lot of people, they're looking for a way out. They just really are looking for a way out. For you and me, it was a little easier, again, because of our Latin background and things like that. But still, at the end of the day, again, I came out to Mexico and I had to deal with it just like anyone, any other American. I don't have any Mexican blood. I don't have anything like that. So I had difficulties as well. In order to make this dream happen. Which is freedom, right? The freedom that we don't have in the USA anymore. And for a lot of people out there, I mean, you already know there's a lot of people out there in the USA these days that they're just going crazy because of everything going on, and they have no way out. And they're looking at videos like ours, our channels like ours, trying to, find a solution. But when you don't have much money, those solutions become more and more difficult. And so, for example, like, this is why I always, we were talking about the income, getting some sort of income, some sort of job, some sort of something. Like in your case, again, you were lucky enough. I mean, not lucky enough. You worked very hard and you sacrificed a lot in the USA, and you worked in the USA, and you had a lot of savings. Well, enough savings, right, to make this crazy thing happen, which is, hey, I'm leaving, I'm moving to Paraguay, and just figuring it out when I get there. But you had a cushion. you had, already some sort of savings. Some people want to do this without a penny into their name, and it's like, no, man, you're not going to be able to do that. If you're going to be, if you're going to do something crazy like that, which is come to another country with nothing, you better have, again, a little something. You know what I mean? It's not nothing. Meaning, for example, in my case, I only came out here with $1,500, but at least I had some income. I already had a job. I had something, where I already did the math, and I said, okay, I can make it happen. Same with you. You had your savings. You're like, all right, I can live off of this for a while. But at some point, I got to get a job. Again, you got lucky because of your channel, by you helping other people, somebody reached out to you, and then now that person helped you out, and now you got a great job, and now you can really enjoy, right, your life out there in Paraguay. So that's like an important thing. At the end of the day, we're all immigrants. Okay, unless you're retired, and you're, just looking to, live out the last days of your life in peace. For most people, these days, again, how old are you? 34? Is that what you said? 34?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I came out
yeah,
here with 36. Actually, you came out here with 33, right? At 33
yeah.
years old? Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like these days more and more young people are looking for a solution. They know that it's a dead end in the USA, that American dream, unfortunately is not going to be there, or is not there for many people anymore. But it doesn't mean that you can't have that dream life, that American dream, but recreate it elsewhere. Correct? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, sorry, I went on a rant there.
No, and I mean you're absolutely right. The American dream is outside of America. That's very common, I guess, now for most people's mindset. Makes sense economically, and well, one thing too that's not discussed enough is, yes, your residency card is great while you're young, but that gives you so much power to plan for retirement and like actually plan for retirement. Once you get your residency card, and then you buy a house, something that's say $40,000 or something like that, the same price of a car in the U.S. Well, then you're doing very well, and you can live off of Social Security. At that point, and there's more and more uh, retirees who are hitting me up,
Hmm.
wanting information about Paraguay and all that. So, I'm seeing it in real time, and it's very possible. And a lot of these guys have pensions as well, which is extra good. um,
Yeah.
and they'll do just fine. Especially if you start around, when we started, getting to know the country, knowing, where, how to buy good deals, who to trust, that kind of thing. And then just kind of seeing what kind of life you want. If you want a city life, country life, somewhere in between that. And then once you get some of these things locked down in your name, nice little home or something that you're able to even Airbnb out if you purchase it well before you're going to retire. Well, you figured out a lot in life. The newest number is what, $5 million to
Wow.
retire comfortably or whatever in America. It used to be like somewhere around like 1.5 or 2 million, but in the last year, it's, I mean, it's outrageous.
Yeah, yeah.
What people have to save in America, and I'm like, I can't save $5 million. Are you kidding me? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, yeah, no,
So
no. Listen. I totally agree with you. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, because like what you were saying, it's like, you got to build a nest egg, you got to work hard, you got to build all this up. It takes a while. But it's at the end of the day, it's like in the USA, it's like you don't. For us younger folk, it's almost impossible for us to really do that. So we can, again, we still have some sort of you know, um, an option. Again, when we move to another country, we can build up all that because again, you're 34, I'm 44. Okay, so 10-year difference there. But still, for example, if I was in the USA, I'm not going to retire for another 25 years. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And for what? You know what I mean? Again, I see people, as you said, right now, on a daily basis that, they're just retiring or about to retire, and it's not enough. It's not even anywhere close to enough, and obviously they want to move to another country. In Mexico at this point, it's difficult for some people that only have a little bit of pension or a little bit of income or a little bit of what is it, like social security or whatever. But as you said, they can find other countries like Paraguay, where they don't have to meet any kind of financial requirements in order to get residency, and they can again go out there, visit, see if they like it. If they like it, again, probably purchase an affordable home and then just live their life there. Again, at any age, something like this is, look, when we were in the USA, something like that was like impossible. but like, but out here, it's totally possible. When I was in the USA, I had absolutely zero faith that I was ever gonna be able to afford to buy a home. Out here in Mexico, I've only been here 7 years, and I'm like, man, you know what I mean? Like, in a few more years, I'm definitely gonna be able to afford to buy a home. Again, maybe not cash, but still, you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, have my own home, for me and my wife, which is something that it's just not attainable in the USA anymore unless you get like a 68-year mortgage, or something like that.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean that's completely true, and it never appealed to me. The whole idea of paying for a home well into your 50s, 60s, 70s. That's a scary thought. A lot of things can happen in those years. So I'm thinking, I'm gonna have a house paid off probably by 40. So I don't know. And then, again, it's an impossible thing to even think about in the States. And, in the States too, there's so many extra things. There's HOAs, there's insane property taxes, there's God knows what else happening. You need house insurance as well. You need some of that stuff can be astronomical depending where you're at, especially in Florida, hurricanes and all that. So, that number starts to get pretty damn big. It's
Oh,
not just a mortgage. It's,
dude, it's
you get,
insane. Yeah, it's insane when people tell
yeah.
me, like, yeah, when people tell me how much they actually spend out there. I'm like, where are you getting that money? I'm saying, but it's like
Well,
most
yeah.
people are not. Most people are in debt. Most people are just, basically it's paycheck to paycheck. But you made a great point with like things like property tax. Even if you own your house outright, a lot of people, they do own their house outright, but it's like they got to pay property taxes as thousands of dollars a month in a sense. And out here in Mexico, same as I'm sure in Paraguay, property taxes are, just a few dollars, give or take. It's not anything at all. It's like, it's completely different. And, that amount of freedom, allows people to, breathe easy and have a higher quality of life because you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about the government taking your house or getting a fine, like you said, because, you didn't cut your grass or you didn't put out the garbage when you were supposed to or whatever it is, right? I mean, I got, yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, no, you're right. Yeah, I mean, there's the fake freedom in America, but once you step outside, especially the most Latin American countries, your day to day life is not messed with by the government. You know, and you can live pretty free. In every sense of the word.
Yeah.
uh, and it's a good feeling. And you don't have well, I mean, maybe we do because we're still tied to America like that, but your average Paraguayan, doesn't have Uncle Sam bring or the equivalent, breathing down their neck all the time. They're not all surveilling you at every corner and everything you're doing, and down to every penny you're making or whatever. So it's a good thing. And eventually, maybe not fully like denouncing citizenship, but slowly breaking ties with America, whether it be like your income, say you get a job like a European company, or in the new place that you're at, or you're doing something like YouTube or whatever that's still tied to America, but it's chill. uh, it's you make your money, you report to Google it pretty much, and then but it's something chill. And that's a thing that I think most people should strive for, which I do push people to start YouTube channels. Last time I was on yours, probably around 500 subscribers. Now I'm like 1,700, so
Wow.
1,700 or so.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations, man. Wow. That's
Yeah,
great.
thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So
awesome.
I'd love.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one of these days I'd like to get up to Jose Arteaga numbers, but we're gonna get there one day.
Yeah, man. With
But
a lot of work and effort, man, you'll get there. I mean, but that's the thing, Oh, go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. What you were saying?
no, I mean, YouTube has been a real blessing. There's meeting people. Even especially this opportunity that I got to continue to stay here and show people. I do consultations as well for people who are thinking about moving here. And it's my launching pad for pretty much everything. It creates transparency as well for like things like dating. I know not every guy likes to point them to girls to their YouTube, but I don't care. I will.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
At the end of the day, remember, you're a single guy. You know what I mean? In your early 30s. You know what I mean? So it's like, you got your own perspective on life and on things, right? And there's a lot of people out there that are interested in a lot of those things. I mean, I got my own perspective on things out here as well. Every channel's different. That's the thing. I totally agree with you. I mean, look, look. When I first moved up to Mexico, those are like five channels. Like three retirees and two. With the Kinetic Keenans and who else? And the Tangerine Travels guys. That's it. Just a handful of people. And now, oh my God, like every state, in Mexico has like 15, 20 YouTubers, you know what I mean? But it's great because everybody has a different perspective, you know what I mean? There might be a black family here, it might be, two retirees, over there that are hippies, there might be, just a regular family with like seven kids, that moved out, so, and everybody has a different perspective and that's important. Real quick, before we get too, deep into this, I forgot. Remember, we were gonna answer some questions from the audience, and I see some people are already asking a few questions. So I'm gonna, go on ahead and, we'll answer them together. We'll figure it out. But anyways, I see Kelly. Kelly asked a very important question. She goes, Jose, you said that you'll be able to buy a house in a few years, not with cash. So how do you plan on doing that? Well, it's very easy. First of all, okay, if I cannot afford it cash, you know what I mean, for whatever reason, well, probably because I don't have enough money, then what I would do is I would tap into my credit. I've been in Mexico 7.5 years, you know what I mean? So I have bank accounts. I built up my credit here. In fact, I got 10 times, 100 times better credit in Mexico than I do in the USA. And so, those are paths, you know what I mean? In order to get like a loan, because you got to build your credit, you got to do that. Also, remember, we've talked about it before on other live streams, or with Jose Novello when we were doing the house tours. That pretty soon they're also going to be offering loans. So, for example, you coming from the USA, you might be able to, again, get in contact with, one of these loan officers here in Mexico, and they'll, again, kind of set up a mortgage for you so you can buy a home. Also, there are also international lenders out there, that, again, instead of going to like a Bank of America or a Wells Fargo to get a bank loan to buy a home in the USA, there are other, banks, that deal with Americans, that are, that give them loans so that they can also purchase homes, again, whether in Mexico, Paraguay, whatever. Okay, so there are options out there, but you got to do your own homework and you got to kind of work on that. Now, me, again, I really don't want to get any loans. I don't want to get any debt. I don't want to get into that. What I can do out here, what a lot of people have for options, outside of the USA, is we just do it the traditional way, which is what we used to do in the USA, which is work hard, earn money, save that money, and then use that money that you saved in order to purchase a house or a car or whatever it is. And so, those are things that we just don't even have in the USA anymore. The ability to save money, to do something like that. But yeah, that's the thing. That like my plan is to eventually, obviously buy a house. I mean, why not? You guys know. I'm in that world a little bit, so I know that there are options out there that we can afford to at least purchase a home. So that's the thing, like, even like I said, right now I can go to the bank and the bank is willing, again, just because I built up my credit out here for so many years already, that I can get a loan to purchase a house right now if I want. But do I want to get like a 30-year mortgage and super high interest rates? I don't. Okay, so that's why I don't purchase a home at the moment. And I'm just saving up money. But yeah, it's a great question. But that's how you do it. Like what most people do is that, for example, in the USA, they might already have a house purchased, whether they own it outright or not. They might still have a mortgage, whatever, but they're able to sell it, all right, and make some money off of it. And then with that money that they make off of that house, that's what they bring out to Mexico, Paraguay, whatever, and that's how many people purchase a house outright. So that's the thing. I can't. Like there's no. The thing is, remember, Mexico, Paraguay, all these countries, especially again, Mexico's close to the USA, but Paraguay totally different. You're not gonna just walk into a bank in Paraguay and be like, "Hey, I want to purchase a home. Can I get a loan?" No, they're gonna to get out of here. That's the thing. A lot of people have that misconception that that other countries out there just give away free money or free loans or whatever, like in the USA. But this is not how it works. But anyway, sorry if I went a little long there. I saw someone had a question for you, that said, how is the mail system in Paraguay? Mail, like when you got to get something.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the national mail system, it's smooth enough. If you're to get something, it'll get to you. If you guys don't know, you probably do know, but Latin America, our addresses are all crazy. They're like literally like sentences long. Like, oh, this house is on the corner of this and this the second house, and there's this because there's no house numbers. Like there. Well, sometimes there are, but
Yeah,
you
on
know,
your
so
address, sometimes you got to put, okay, it's by the tree on the corner of,
yeah.
68 and, right next to the church, yeah, like that. And then that's how they
Well,
find it.
you know what's funny is mine my address my full address that even shows up on like a bill. I got a Catholic church up the road, and it's like 100 meters from the Catholic church on this corner and this corner, and it's the second house, and like what the fuck. But so, anyways, yeah, if you're to order stuff, whether it's here or internationally, the more important thing is that you have a phone number that the people can they'll call you. Which the mailman's not going to call you in the U.S., but here they will because they need to know where they're going, and they're just as lost as you. But what's up? If you guys probably use what's up, the sharing location stuff is really easy. So if you're expecting something, you just literally share your location with somebody who's going to contact you. It's the same like if you go through like DHL, that kind of thing, or uh, I don't even know if FedEx and UPS are hardly a thing anymore here. Pretty much
Oh,
just
okay.
DHL. They are, but they're really expensive. DHL is kind of the go-to, at least what I've seen in the last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, it does work. It's just a little bit more frustrating, and things take a little bit longer. But it's certainly not going to be like the U.S. And
Yeah, because in the USA, yeah, in the US, we have the USPS, right? The US Postal Service. And so, everybody thinks that all over the world, everybody has the same postal service, but that's not the case. Like every country, Mexico's mail service is horrible. I'm guessing Paraguay as well. Meaning that if you mail something through the national, mail service, yeah, it's like you got to pray, every day, right? That it gets to the destination. And so, like, for example, in Mexico, if you want something to get, if you want something to get to its destination for sure, you have to use, things like DHL, FedEx, UPS, whatever. There's a bunch of other carriers because very rarely do people go down the Mexican postal service because it's so horrible. But okay, so you're telling me in Paraguay they don't even have FedEx or UPS. It's just DHL.
there
And
is, but
okay,
most people don't use it. It's going to be mostly DHL, and I've seen mostly DHL offices like in the mall and or whatnot.
okay.
Um, so yeah, so and there's no Amazon down here. I think you guys have Amazon in
Yes.
Mexico, right?
Yeah, yeah, we got Amazon. We even have Amazon in Mexico. I mean, we got our own Amazon. Yeah, yeah. So it's awesome. Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
the thing. That's one of the okay. So look because again, a lot of people ask me like, Jose, why do you live in Mexico and not elsewhere? Well, look again. After living here for so long, I've realized, man, Mexico is just like the USA without the bull crap. So meaning I got, I don't even got to worry about, I got my own Amazon. I got my own Costco. I got my own, Starlink, for example, because I use Starlink, right? And people tell me how much they pay in the USA for Starlink. I'm like, holy guacamole, because I pay like $50, for my Starlink a month. 60 bucks, $60. But come on, I mean, just and I get amazing internet service. And so just, I mean, it's just things like that like depending on the country, depending on what you have. So again, you being in Paraguay, you're very far away. You're all the way down south. So yeah, it's a lot more difficult. I'm guessing for mail and for other things. Which again, they're good things and they're bad things. Sometimes you do want to be kind of disconnected from some of these things. For me, it's it kind of sucks. You know what I mean? I mean, it's great that I have Amazon overnight delivery, but at the same time, you got Amazon overnight delivery, so you can, buy whatever you want, and you got to be careful with your spending.
yeah. Well, there's certainly other companies though that I mean, you can get anything like delivered here in Paraguay. I forgot to mention that. So like, for example, I got a desk. I ordered a desk, and what used to be commonplace in America, something that you'd have to pay an extra fee for like somebody to come to your home and like set up a desk or whatever it is, some kind of furniture. That used to be like some premium cost, an extra $100 in the U.S. That's just included with the cost here. Like so there's a 2P is where a lot of people get their furniture and pretty much anything. Um, and so, when you're ordering something, it'll come in a box, and then the next day somebody will come and actually set it up for you if you want them to. And so, it's really cool and it's nice, right? Otherwise, you're spending 5 6 hours trying to put some of these things together with terrible instructions. But they're bringing their tools and they can do everything for you. And so, there's those old country trades that are still happen here.
Oh, that's super
um
awesome, man.
yeah, yeah. And so yeah, anything delivered that you want. I mean, even
Okay.
down to groceries and fast food and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
uh
that's the thing I realized, when I moved to Mexico, you can get anything delivered. I mean, this is pre-COVID, before COVID. It's normal. Again, for most Latin America, it doesn't matter what you need, medicine, you need some fast food, you need some whatever it is, you just pick up the phone and they deliver it to you, and a good majority of the time for free. You know what I mean? Like sometimes they'll charge you maybe like $1, you know what I mean, or whatever the equivalent in their currency. But other than that, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's you get everything delivered. It's super, super convenient. Speaking of medicine, because I just thought of that real quick. How's medicine? How is, like the medical care in Paraguay? How's medicine? Like, for example, can you get medicine delivered to your house? Can you get a doctor to come to your house? Because that's another benefit of living in Mexico. So many times I just have the vet, to come see Gizmo. He comes to the house. The doctor, depending on how sick you are, for example, to see grandma, we'll have the doctor come to the house. We can go to the doctor. But anywho's, do they have that kind of stuff there in Paraguay too? And how's the cost or, you know?
oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's super nice. Especially the vet is nice. They'll pick up my dog and like go take him to the clinic and give him a bath, and it's like, I don't know, $10, $15 or something like that. So that's really cool as well. That's not something in the States. uh but yeah, like there's pharmacies that do delivery. There's tons of pharmacies down here. It's mind blowing how many pharmacies there are. In the States, you're gonna have to drive miles and miles for one Walgreens, but
Yeah.
here it's kind of ridiculous. Like there'll be like two pharmacies right next to each other. I don't even understand.
No, no, yeah, same here, bro. Sometimes we'll have like, like 4 or 5 different pharmacies, all different companies, but they're all like on the same block or whatever.
I
But
know.
what I mean, I even got like the pharmacy mascot up there. You know what I mean? Like that's Dr. Simi. But anywho's, yeah, we have way more access, right? And the prices, I'm sure, a lot more affordable, right? More options and everything.
Yeah, and I'm young, so I don't need any kind of like home care or anything. But that stuff certainly exists. I couldn't put a price on it for you guys because I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but certainly you can get nurses to come to your house, that kind of thing, for sure. Health insurance is much cheaper. I'm talking about like sometimes you can maybe somebody my age $20 $30 a month.
Wow.
Maybe
Okay.
somebody older might be, I don't know, 40 50 a month. Stuff that is just equivalent to your copay when you go to just like a normal doctor
Mm-hmm.
visit, without the hundreds and hundreds of dollars that you're going to have to fork over every month that comes out of your paycheck. That doesn't happen here. And so it's a little bit different. There's not like these like ginormous healthcare systems here. It's just like clinic to clinic, hospital to hospital. So you're going to go in and see if there might be like one or two at best of like the same hospital under the same care, like in Asuncion versus like San Lorenzo or something. But most of the time, it's going to be like, no, this is the university hospital, or this is this hospital. You have health insurance here. Um, so and but Paraguayans do have access. It's ridiculous. Like Paraguayans have better access to free healthcare. Now it's not the best healthcare, but they actually have access to healthcare, which is mind blowing as Americans.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah,
you
Mexico
know,
too. Mexico also has free healthcare. I mean, I've dealt with, situations where I've had to use some of the free healthcare. I mean, again, it's not the best, it's not, but it's free. It's there. You know, even for sometimes, for
yeah,
many things, it's like, anyways. But yes, yes, okay, that's awesome, and that is crazy. You know what I mean? That's the thing. When you travel around the world, you're like, well, why does every country just about, have free healthcare and have all these, amazing amenities, right? At this point, for their citizens. And in the USA, the richest country in the world, we don't even have simple things like healthcare or housing. But anyways, but that's another story.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you're right, and yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. The U.S. and decade after decade after decade, it never gets fixed. So
It gets
uh,
worse at this point.
yeah, it gets worse. Um, but yeah, like I said, anything or any service you can get easier and even better, and so yeah, there's nothing that you're lacking here for sure.
Hey, I want to ask you a quick question, man, because I know because remember, there's a lot of people that first time they see you, first time they they hear about you and stuff like that, and they don't even know about Paraguay. So I want to just ask a few basic questions, like the weather, because I remember the first time I talked to you that you were telling me about the weather, and it's basically the same as where I live. Like the jungle, right? I mean, basically very hot, right, hot and humid, right, and things like that. I mean, I don't think you're in the jungle, but I'm just saying like the same kind of weather and stuff like that. And it's for some people that might be a turn on or a turn off. But what I was going to ask you is like you've been there a whole year. So how has the weather changed? Because like right now it's October, and here in the Yucatan, we're just ending the rainy season and it's starting to cool down finally. After a brutal summer or brutal spring, so it's starting to finally cool down and stuff like that. So we do have kind of like a semblance of seasons and Florida style. But how is it in Paraguay? How do the seasons change, or does the temperature drop or get hotter, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, we're starting to enter spring. Then it's going to be hot in the next couple coming months. But we are. They say that we are the hottest country in South America. We're a very lowlands country. There's and so we get the brunt of the heat. It'd be similar to Australia or South Africa, country in South That's America.
Mm.
Like where
Mm.
we're very uh, you know horizontally, on the axis, but that's probably the best way I could describe it. Um, but it does get extremely hot in the summer here. It cools down in the winter. The winter is actually pretty pleasant. The one thing is though is our houses aren't really built for cold, so when it gets cold, you're gonna feel it.
Mm.
Uh, Certainly, and because we don't have the double layered like houses and like we do in Wisconsin or whatever. So the cold is gonna seep in when it is cold. But otherwise, besides that, like this is probably the best time of year, the spring and the fall season here, and it's getting 70s, 80s right now. The summer can be pretty brutal, 100 degrees, all that stuff. Probably pretty similar to Merida, and yeah, but I'd rather take hot summers over long Wisconsin winters any day. So yeah,
And how hot does it get? Like, what's the hottest it has gotten out there?
it'll get 100 for sure.
Oh, okay. Oh, but not okay. So not over 100. Doesn't like go over 100 for too much.
It'll go over 100 a little bit. Not, I mean, not like extremely.
Okay, so it's still pretty cool because out here it does go over 100. For a few months sometimes. Okay.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I mean, once it starts in like January through February, that it gets consistently stay around that for
Okay.
sure. So yeah, I mean that might be a turnoff for a lot of people, but at the same time, everything else you're getting here is kind of evens out. So
Yeah, because the weather. Yeah, that's another thing too. Like out there. Hold on a second. I think you froze up real quick. Hold on. But anyways, yeah, but it's like the thing with the weather out there. Let me see, is it working? Hold on a second. Yeah, but what I was gonna say is like the seasons out there are totally different. Because again, like you were just saying, you're finishing up spring and you're going into summer now. And now right now here we're in fall, going into winter. Also, yeah, because again, that's the thing. Remember, you're that far away and you're in another part of the planet in a sense. And so like what time is it over there? So for example, like I'm in mountain time right now. So it is 1 p.m. All right, so it would be I guess 3 p.m., Eastern time, Eastern Standard Time. So what time is it where you're at?
yeah, right now it's 4, so we're 1 hour ahead of Eastern.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, so we're me and you are 3 hours off. So yeah, we're people don't really understand that South America is actually pretty far east. Like we stick out farther east than any, like even Canada or anything like that, or Maine or anything. So it's not just like going directly south. You're actually going pretty far east as well. Uh, so yeah, that's why we're the whole new time zone,
Oh
our own
wow. Okay.
our own time zone, PTY, Paraguayan time zone. So.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's it. Yeah, because I didn't even think about that. But you make a right. Yeah, again, the world is round, right? So it's a curvature and like the, like how. Yeah, okay, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, okay, now I get it. Okay. The seasons. I know that the seasons. It's like the four hemispheres of the planet. There's always a different season in each one, so it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, you're in a different season down there. And then the time. Okay, now I know why you're 1 hour ahead of New York. Because you're further east than New York and Maine and Vermont, all those, the East Coast and stuff like that. That's why you're an hour ahead. But that's also like an advantage because again, you don't have to worry about too much. Same as me, I'm in U.S. time. I'm a mountain time, but again, I'm right in the same time zone. Same as you. You're just 1 hour ahead. If anything, it's a little bit of an advantage, I would say, because you're an hour ahead. So that's great. You know what I mean? Because that's another thing too. For a lot of people, like they say, hey, why do you guys choose, Latin America instead of like going to Asia? Well, because Asia's like literally on the other side of the planet. Right now, Asia, well, I don't even know what time it would be, but I'm guessing it's like, what, 9 o'clock at night? Who knows, or 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's one thing, there's like a big turnoff for a lot of people. Also, the language, for us, it was a lot easier because, I mean, I speak Spanish. I'm guessing you spoke Spanish as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that, that made it easier. But the time zone thing, for me, I love Mexico because I'm literally a stone's throw away from the USA. I got my family, my friends right there, not that, too far away. But yeah, yeah, okay. Because a lot of people take those things into account. You know what I mean? Like when they're, looking as to where they're gonna move abroad. Speaking of which, I know at least on my channel, I always, like to break everything down, the good, the bad, the ugly. But a lot of times for at least from my perspective, it's a lot of good. I love it out here. It's like, a lot of people always ask me, like, always say, it's like, oh, Jose, you're always talking about like a lot of the good things, but never the bad things. So, what are some of the bad things, I guess? You know what I mean? What would be something that, you don't like or, you miss from home or whatever, what's the bad, the ugly, that you might not like so much about living where abroad or living in Paraguay?
Infrastructure for sure. Lack of sidewalks, like real sidewalks, uh, for sure. Also in Paraguay, there's flooding quite a bit.
Mm.
And it affects people who are usually poor that live down by the streams and rivers. Um, whether it affects me or not, I hate to see it. So and a lot of these things are, just I don't know if they're ever going to be fixed. I mean, you got to remember the two that our cities here were designed 500 years ago by the Spanish, so like they not everything was taken into account and all that. So
Yeah, and not
yeah,
just that, but again, in other countries, they got different priorities. You know what I mean? As what they're gonna fix or put their money into or what have you. I mean, we got similar problems here. For me, what breaks my heart sometimes, or a lot of times, when I see stray animals, stray dogs, cats, that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Paraguay's actually kind of odd in that sense that there's not, well, I don't know if I should say that. There's not as many truly homeless animals as you think. Most animals have some kind of owner, whether like a comes to you at night or like gets food. Like pretty much every animal is taken care of in some fashion. I mean, my guy's spoiled as hell. He's a house dog, and yeah, I hate to see that. And then just general poverty as well. Like again, I'm not seeing it all the time, but I know the areas where it does exist, and me being from here, it does hurt to see that, especially kids. Um, and don't a lot of people get it twisted. Like Latin America is poor. No, it's not. There's the same greed that exists in America. A lot of these things could and should have been solved uh, decades ago. And so it's just a lot of the same stuff, problems that America has. I guess one of the good things though is Paraguay is not as violent as a lot of the other countries around us. Like some of the metropolises in Buenos Aires or the favelas in Brazil. We have our little areas, but it's a pretty people get along. Um, there's if there's cartel activity, it's on the border of Brazil, and it hardly ever affects us being all the way here. So you know, and that's nice. And I guess another nice thing too is you're not going to see tatted up gang members like you would in like Central America or Mexico or even the States. So I mean, yeah, you'll see tatted up people, but they're not really going to be like like face tatted up like
Yeah, like you
crazy.
would see, like, yeah, you would see in Miami or LA or no, I get it. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a quick question. Just to piggyback off of something you said there about the safety. Because look, for me, again, I have a twisted view of safety because I was born and raised in Miami in the '80s and '90s. I lived in LA. I've traveled around certain areas that would be considered extremely dangerous. So for me, and I landed in Merida, which is like the safest city in like the Americas. So I have like a twisted kind of like view on safety because even when I travel Mexico, I feel pretty safe. You know what I mean? Compared to what other Mexicans feel like. How dangerous it could be. With that said, you come from Wisconsin, and I don't know exactly what part of Wisconsin you're from, but I'm guessing it's a lot safer, than Los Angeles or Miami, and things like that. So your view on safety is a little different. So when you move to Paraguay, how do you view it? How do you view it? Coming from Wisconsin, moving all the way, or being in Paraguay, the safety issue, is it safe? Like meaning, is it as dangerous as like a city, or is it just super safe like I guess in Wisconsin? Can you just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So what I grew up in the capital city of Wisconsin. And overall, yeah, I mean, in comparison with like a Miami or LA, yeah, it's definitely safer. But there's levels to it because I grew up as a brown man in Wisconsin, so like it's a different atmosphere because when I was younger, you had and there's issues, a lot of issues between Latino and Black folks. I hate to admit it, but there just was growing up. So
Oh, see
you know
that's kind of crazy because in my region in Florida, black folks and Latin folks got along. You know what I mean? Like for the
uh,
most part, yeah, yeah, yeah. But up in Wisconsin, not so much, I guess, huh?
Yeah, and it's there's just friction, and that kind of goes a little bit into Chicago and Milwaukee too.
Hmm.
That a lot of people don't really understand, but like Milwaukee and even places in Madison are very segregated. Like Milwaukee is the most segregated city in the entire country. But that kind of so if you're kind of othering people your entire lives, which a lot of people do, and a lot of people fear the unknown, right? So I'd like and again, things got better like in adulthood and all that, but it's just different, right? Because you have to think about the environments that you're in Wisconsin. But now when I come down here, I look like everybody, so there's no like I don't have to be like feared of like racial profiling or does a certain group of people not like me? Is there tension that could carry on to me looking the way I do? I don't got to think about that. So in that aspect, it's nice. Yes, there's poverty here. And a lot of times people will immediately assume that poverty means violence, but not here. There's community aspect. There's big families. There's a lot of there's more what's the word, accountability between your family and your community here. So again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's not as much as a lot of other broken communities and broken countries and cities. But there's like I said, the states is different, right? Because there's more tribalism, there's more groups of people. I mean, even within Latinos, as you probably know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
sometimes like Puerto Ricans are beefing with Mexicans or whatever.
Or Cubans or whatever. Everybody. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. So it's just and you don't have to think about those aspects here, which is like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
um, and I have to consciously be aware of like where I'm at in the states. And I grew up in a very white neighborhood too, and most folks that would have known me as a kid, okay, that's that's Ryan. But when you grow up, and then later it's like, okay, well, then now there's just a brown man in the neighborhood. Do we know him? La, 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 and you got to deal with Karenicity and that kind of stuff. So it's just there's just aspects to it,
Yeah, there's
that and
levels to it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not just like a straightforward answer. I totally agree with you. You know what I mean, like in the sense of like, for in your situation, you know what I mean, you feel a lot safer. Look, I'll be honest, man. Same thing. I was in Miami. I was in my bubble there. Felt super safe. Being in Miami. I'm a Cuban in Miami. Come on. But yeah, the minute I left Miami and I landed in Seattle, like yeah, some for some people they didn't know, like, oh, is he white? Is he whatever? But the minute I spoke and I had my Miami accent and hey, what's your name? Jose Arteaga? What? Jose Ortega? Don't matter. You know what I mean? Like immediately, some people would put their barriers down. Not everybody, obviously, I went all over. But yeah, I mean, as an American, you know what I mean? As a Latino American, you know what I mean? I totally understand that. You know what I mean? There's some parts of the country, it's just not so good. And some parts are good. Again, and like you said, it's tribalism. You could be a white guy, all right, that came on the Plymouth Rock, you know what I mean? It was like on the Mayflower or whatever, and you're gonna come across, certain neighborhoods, certain areas in the USA where the same thing's gonna happen to you, as a white American or as a black person. There's a lot of black people that are moving to Mexico. So there's a lot of, like you said, in the USA these days, a lot of tension that has just gotten so much worse. And then when you're in another country, again, like right now, you're in Paraguay and you look just like everybody else, and there's no problem. Look, here in this part of Mexico, I don't look like everybody else, but yet, I'm accepted, I'm embraced, I got no problems. I love it out here. When I go to Guadalajara, there's a lot of people that look like me. You know what I mean? So up there, you know what I mean? Like it was very different. But the point is that yeah, man, that goes, that is a big thing. So okay, so I want to ask you a second, kind of follow up to that. So I'm sure you've already encountered, other Americans, that are white Americans, gringos for whatever, in Paraguay, whether they're visiting or living there. How do they get treated? Do they get like any, do they get treated the same as you, or how does that work?
They get treated very well. Paraguay is a pretty special country in that very extremely accepting of foreigners. And there's no anti-gringo sentiment here. I don't even in the future. I don't predict any either. Um, there might be one outlier of like a thousands that doesn't like some gringo here or something, but for the majority, yeah, people, Paraguayans are very curious people. They're going to want to know your story. It's very common for people to chat you up when you're, I don't know, going to the supermarket or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, so, yeah, your average white looking gringo is going to do just fine here. And again, we're Latin America. We're one of the most mestizo countries, but not everybody looks like me. There's certainly whiter looking folks, more native looking folks. So like a lot of those people blend in. But the thing is, like, people don't automatically assume you're American. Actually, people think you're Argentinian if you're
Yeah.
looking that white. Because we're in a different part of the world. If we're in Mexico, yeah, it's number one thought's going to be American. But in this part of the world, it's not the same. So the first thought isn't American until you speak. And that, but even me, like I have my accent. I don't speak like natives. I'm fluent, but I'm not a native speaker. So like people even ask me, "Oh, are you Brazilian or Portuguese?" Like because I have my like little like gringo thing or accent when I speak Spanish. Not too much anymore, but
But yeah, but you still have an accent. Look, even for me, when I speak Spanish, my Spanish has gotten only better, as the years have gone on out here.
yeah.
But still, yo no soy Mexicano. I don't speak Mexican. I'm not Yucatecan. I'm not gonna be able to learn that, and I'm just it doesn't fit me. But a lot of people, same thing. Most people like when I'm right off the bat, I speak Spanish. They never assume I'm American, ever. It isn't like the last thing on their mind. In fact, they're like, where you from? Because I can't, I don't know that accent. You know what I mean? I'm like, you from Argentina or are you from, Uruguay or something like that? And then I go, no, I'm Cuban, but I was born in the USA. It's like, oh, no wonder, your Spanish is, weird.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's super true. And when I was growing up, kind of bringing it back to the other topic, a lot of people assumed I was Puerto Rican. So like a lot of Mexicans didn't actually like me at the beginning, but then I said, "Oh, I'm Paraguayan." It's like, Oh, okay. Well, shit, we don't have any beef with you, you know.
Yeah, man, that's
The-
Paraguay, bro. Nobody has beef with Paraguay, bro. You guys are great, man. You know.
yeah, I mean, if you know one Paraguayan, like there's you know, this, probably
No,
more than anybody else knows. But
no. I think you were going with the joke because in the USA, there's a horrible joke that says like you're never gonna see two American Indians in the same spot. You know, you only see one. So it's the same thing in
yeah,
Paraguay. Outside of Paraguay, you're never gonna find more than one, right?
yeah, yeah, that's true. But actually, seriously, the Paraguayans are New Jersey, New York, and Miami. So if you are going to see Paraguayans in the states, those are probably most likely the
Yeah.
places that you
Yeah,
will
yeah.
see them.
Like I'm familiar with it, like Paraguayans. I'm familiar with just about every Latin American country because in Miami we had everybody. Everybody's there. So yeah, there's a big Paraguayan community, like Brazilians, just like everybody, Argentina, you name it. They're all,
Yeah,
represented in Miami. They got their own neighborhood or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Miami's crazy, man. I've never been there, but I would certainly like to go, but with more money.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, for you gotta have money. Like, how about this? Is like once you get enough money to buy a house, in Paraguay, okay, maybe then you can afford to go to Miami to vacation,
Yeah,
for a few weeks.
exactly. That's the plan. But yeah, no, but yeah, and I also get the question, how are black people treated here? Um, very well, and we don't have the same issues as Argentina and Brazil. Because most people would assume that Brazil, because they have more
Yeah, more
African blood.
black people in Brazil. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Argentina, like there's like everyone's white, but there's a lot of black people in Argentina también, and there's a lot
yeah,
of indigenous.
it's similar to the states with the whole racism stuff in Brazil. And then Argentinians are known historically and to this day to be quite racist themselves. Again, not all of them, obviously, but like and they Argentinians actually look down on Paraguayans as well. We're the dirty indios, like in their eyes.
Bro, come on, man. As a Latino, Argentinians look down on everybody, bro. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah, yeah,
special.
yeah.
Like
That,
yeah, yeah.
that is
They're
true.
great
Yeah,
at they're great at soccer, bro. They're great at World Cups, but not so good at what is it like personal relations and government.
yeah. And again, a lot of this stuff comes from the big cities in Argentina. Like in the northern Argentina, it's almost like a completely different vibe, or just like once you get out of like the main metropolises of Argentina, and it's going to have a similar feel to Paraguay, just very like relaxed. People are relaxed, very nice. It's not all people in Buenos Aires are like that, but this I wouldn't want to live in Buenos Aires.
Just
I'll
visit.
visit.
Yeah, just to go visit.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, no, people of all colors, of all cities are treated very well here. And I wouldn't lie about that. If there was the case where no, Paraguayans are deeply racist against this group or that group, I would be honest about it. But it's just not the case. So Paraguayans stare and are very curious, but it's not. They're not going to stare out of hatred or like a get out of my country kind of vibe.
Yeah, just
Uh,
curious. Yeah, just like what is this person? What is this thing? Yeah, yeah, that kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it would be so out of character for somebody to be like that too. If there is a case of like hardcore discrimination, it's not representative of the country. And that's why you don't hear stories coming out of Paraguay with like hate crimes against other groups of people. You'll hear that in Argentina though. Yeah, so it's a different vibe,
Yeah.
and Paraguayans are very accepting, and I think that also goes into our culture as well. Because I mean, we're two cultures. We speak Guarani,
Mhm.
so if you are already two things, you're going to be more likely to be accepting of a third, entity or third ethnicity, right? Because we already share two languages, we already share two cultures, so it's not like super far fetched to be more accepting of like different ideas than maybe some of the neighboring countries around us. So
Yeah,
yeah,
man. No, no, yeah. I mean, I totally agree because like right now, there's a lot of news out there. There's a lot of animosity, or there's a lot of hatred, towards gringos or Americans, here in Mexico. But it couldn't be any further from the truth. Mexico and the Mexican people are like some of the kindest, if not the kindest people I've ever encountered. And yeah, no, everyone's always super nice, and out here again, they treat everybody with open arms. They love everybody. It's very very nice and friendly. There's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be racists. There's always going to be people like that. I think what it boils down to is the fact that the size of the country. Mexico's a huge country, so obviously, like what you said, like in Paraguay, one out of every 10,000 might be a jerk, like a anti-American or whatever. But just one out of 10,000. And again, in a smaller country, how many of those are you going to encounter? But in Mexico, there's a little bit more of those, and you're going to find them in certain areas, like Mexico City. Again, I don't want to get too deep into, the whole politics aspect of it, but it's the same people that protest in the USA sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like a certain group of people just out there, with a loud voice, that make it seem like, again, like a small crowd is a voice for many, but that's not the case. Like, again, everyone in Paraguay, again, even look, we make fun of Argentinians, but, we got no problems with Argentinians. We're all, brothers, we all get along and all that good stuff. But yeah, but that is the thing, like as a Latin American, as a someone from Latin American countries, we are more more receptive, to busting balls. I don't know if I'm saying it right. You know what I mean, right? We're making fun of each other. We're trying to make lightheartedness, out of all kinds of situations and all that stuff. So it's like sometimes like for example in Mexico. So okay, like you were saying in Paraguay, people might just stare at you because they don't know who you are. But in Mexico, how again everyone's nice. But in Mexico, one of the things that they'll do is like for example, let's say you're gonna go get tacos, and then you say, hey, which one of these hot sauces isn't hot? Isn't spicy, and they're gonna tell you, oh, they're going to tell you the spiciest one is the one that's not spicy. You know what I mean? So like, okay. So you put the spiciest one in your taco, and you're like, you take a bite, and you're like, oh fuck, and then all the Mexicans are laughing at you. But what, like for example, as an American, you might think, oh my god, these people hate me. But again, as a Latino, as a Mexican, as whatever, you realize, no, that's how they accept you. That's how they like you. If you can laugh that off, if you can, just roll with the punches, take the ball busting, then they'll accept you, they'll love you. You're literally adopted by them. But if you get mad, if you get upset, if you they don't want nothing to do with you. And again, it's like every country has their little things of how they do. So like, Mexicans, they love to play practical jokes. They love to, like are always laughing. They're always making fun of you. They're always doing all this stuff. But again, if you see how Mexicans interact with each other, that's how they do it. That's how they're always, living their life. So it's the same thing, like every country has like their thing. And so it's about understanding the culture. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to be like them. I don't, you don't always have to be like them. For me, it was easy to assimilate to Mexico because I'm a ball buster. I'm like, are you kidding me? Oh, great. That's how we're going to play. All right, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I was literally at a Mexican party the other day. It was all Mexicans, all Mexicans. And we were already drunk in the whole thing. And one of the Mexicans was like, was eating some tacos. And then one of the other Mexicans was like, hey, try some of this hot sauce. And it's like, oh, no, I don't want it right now because I'm a little too drunk. It's like, no, don't worry about it. It's not spicy. He's like, all right. He puts it on. Dude, it was like death spice, bro. It was like that thing could
Oh
like eat through paint, on a wall. And anyways, as soon as he ate the taco, bro, forget about it. He was like, oh, he was just like,
yeah.
and we're all there laughing at him. But after we were done laughing at him, all we did was like take care of him. All right, Larry. And then we all had our joke. And
Yeah.
again, and the guy that got the joke played on him, he was just laughing it off, and it was just part of the thing. Where again, maybe sometimes in the USA, that might not, that's like fighting words. You know what I mean? Like, how dare you do something like that to me? That kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, well, one of the most common phrases is when you talk about Americans or North Americans or Europeans. A lot of time we'll say probably the same in Mexico as they're frío, they're cold, they're not as open, they're not as warm as us, they're not as playful and as jolly as us, and well, like you were saying before too, like people share memes all the time of like, man, we're poor, but fuck it, we still getting drunk or so. Some like the people embrace their issues, and in the states we stress about everything. So it's eye opening to see people who have much less be much more grateful and thankful, and just laugh a lot of things off, which is good, because in the U.S. you can build that stuff up. You have mental health issues. A lot of guys turn into incels, and they start blaming groups of people or women for absolutely everything going wrong in their life.
Yeah.
So, and that's it's actually pretty crazy because you won't even hear the same equivalent of an incel here. It's not a thing.
Right,
It's not
right,
a
right, right.
and you a lot of I've seen this play out in too, like even with my own family. that like even if there's like a more antisocial kid coming up in your life, your family's gonna always invite that kid out and make that kid come out to interact with family, friends, come to functions. So there's not that same like isolation that happens in America. Because again, big families, big communities, and then just people in general just want to see others well. And so there's no incel culture here. Uh, there's no like basement dwellers here. I mean, there's not even basements, but you know, but there's no equivalent.
Yeah. No, but look,
And
I
so
mean, I get it. Look, out here in Mexico, again, being so close to the USA, being the first world, being all this other stuff, like yeah, you go to Guadalajara, you go to other cities, you go to even here in Merida, in certain areas, you do find a little bit of the incel culture. You find a little bit of some of those guys. But like the minute you leave the city, immediately leaving the city, you just go to the hood or you just go to a pueblo, a village. It's like you said, it's like none of that even, that's not even a thing. It doesn't exist. Like I'm look on the channel, like on my channel, I go out a lot of times, you know what I mean, and help out the needy. We'll go out to a village and we'll give out shoes. We'll go out to like the poor communities, the people living, on the side of the street or whatever, the equivalent out here, and we help them with food, we help them with all that stuff. But the one common thing is that like how everyone here is more community oriented. They're here, again, like they don't like man. It's like they care more about each other. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
more it's a different, like they're not like how you were saying like earlier where a lot of people assume that all, people living in poverty is going to be extremely dangerous, but that's not the case at all. I mean, again, certain areas, in certain big cities, that poverty does make crime, obviously, because you just have to pay the bills of living in a city. But when you're living in poverty and you don't have to worry about all those big city problems, it's not like that at all. You know what I mean? It's like it's completely different. They live a more una vida más sana. How do I say? Like a healthier life. Like a mentally healthier. All this other stuff. And so they take care of each other within the community. They take care of the community. Like the whole responsibility. It's a lot more. How do I say? Everyone is a lot more responsible for each other out there. And like you said, let's say you got a shy family member. Okay, we're gonna help you develop, communication skills so that you're not so shy or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And so like, and everyone's always just trying to, just help each other out. And even if you have like a disability, man, I see people here with disabilities and, they're out here living more full lives, amazing lives, that they would not be able to live in the USA. In the USA, you have a disability, many times they just, kind of lock you up, right? They put you on, what I'm saying? Like, they restrict you. They're like, oh, the poor guy,
yeah,
he's not 100%. He can't really function in society. Where out here, it's not like that at all. Out here is like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, look,
oh yeah,
I'll say, like, right where the taco place where I go to a lot, it's like it's a family run business, right? And one of the kids has Down syndrome, and the kid, and she's already older, bro. She's probably like your age or my age, and the belongs too short. She's just there working, doing like the whatever, peeling potatoes or doing whatever. But it's just like they're part of the family. They're not just just thrown to like we're gonna put you in a home or we're gonna put you on meds or we're gonna exclude you from society or we're gonna hide you. It's not like that at all, man. Out here, it's like everyone's part of the family, everyone's part of the community, right? Like it's just a
yeah.
different vibe.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw that with my Mexican friends in the states, and there was one guy around our age who wheelchair bound, but he was coming to every event. He was wheelchair,
Yeah,
beer in
yeah,
hand, and like,
yeah, yeah.
man, it doesn't fucking matter. Like everybody's included, and participating to the best of their ability. Fuck, he's out there on the dance floor, cousins, and we're all getting drunk and shit, just having a fucking blast and yeah, shit. I mean, it's crazy, man. He sings songs and stuff, and
Mm.
it's crazy, dude. Like but yeah, in the states, the state, literally the state will, step in. Yeah, a lot of times pills are the solution for everything in the states as well, like you were saying. Um,
And the thing is,
and
it's like, look,
people
another
are,
thing.
people are a little bit more embarrassed about it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
look, it's not just look. Another part of it too is like, for example, in the USA, for example, let's say you and your wife have a disabled child. God forbid something like that happens. But again, if it does, it does. But what I'm saying in the USA is like, hey, each parent has to work, each parent has to this, each parent's like, you can't even take care of the kid if you wanted to. You know what I mean? Like it makes it impossible. So that's kind of like where the state steps in. But in Mexico, it's not like that at all. You know what I mean? Like you got something like that. It's like, well, you got family members. You know, you got somebody. There's always somebody. There's always usually multiple people that are there to just step up and help out and whatever. And so it's a lot of things like that too, man. You know what I mean? Like that I've realized. It's like because man, the USA, like I understand, man. Like we were saying earlier, like it feels like it's sometimes it's a little bit too cold. Of
Yeah.
but that's the thing. Like it's I feel like the USA has become that. It's not like it was that. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the USA used to be better. In that sense, it used to be like our Latin American countries, but it's lost that. At least for me. I mean, I don't know, and I think older Americans they understand that they get it. That's why they don't even recognize the country they're in anymore, and they're saying, okay, we'll move to Paraguay. We'll move to like some other country. I don't even know the language, but at least the semblance of normal, semblance of what life used to be like is still very active, and
Yeah.
that's something we don't have in the USA anymore, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, there's an example. I got a soccer field right in front of my house, which is really cool, you know. So it's blissful, and well, a couple things. The kids are always out there, but the cows. Literally, I think the cows belong to the grocery store, and then they let the cows graze on the soccer field. But
Yeah.
anyways, so uh, my niece and my sister came over, and my niece just turned 18, right? Very pretty young lady, and the kids in the soccer field, they're probably like 10 to 14 years old. They're over here trying to impress my niece and stuff. Oh, they're wrestling and just trying to score goals and then this stuff, and we're over here just laughing, my boss from the UK was over. We were drinking some wine, just having a good time and stuff. And yeah, I asked him, what era does this make you think of? He's like, oh, the 80s in the UK. I was like, yeah, this is something that we us kids would have done in the 90s in the states, you know. So there's, but in so many times in the states, like fields aren't even used, interactions are kind of looked down upon, and but it's just funny stuff like that can occur, here, and there's more social interaction and all that good stuff, and it's cool to see healthy society,
Yeah.
and you do feel like you're going back in time.
Yeah, man, for reals. One thing I wanted to touch on because I know when we were talking about earlier, things that you might not like about living in Paraguay, and you were mentioning, the infrastructure. Again, the infrastructure is lacking. I think in most of Latin America. But with that said, for example, the roads might not be the best, and they might not have
Oh yeah,
sidewalks. But one thing that they have here, is they got parks. They got tons of parks. You know what I mean? For all the kids, for adults, for everybody, so and they're in every neighborhood, you know what I mean? Like everywhere. You know what I mean? People see it in my videos when I'm driving around. There's like park after park. And small parks, big parks, all kinds of parks. And so like you said, where you're at, you got the soccer field, not too far from here. I got a baseball field, which is also like a soccer field. But like you said, like sometimes it's the kids that are playing baseball, sometimes it's the adults, on a Sunday afternoon playing softball, getting drunk,
oh yeah,
sometimes, they got, the animals out there, sometimes like at nighttime, when there's nothing, when there's something going on, when there's nothing going on, sometimes they'll have like little flea market type things, or they'll set up, to sell food and to sell all
oh
kinds
yeah,
of things. And again, it's all free. It's all free to go to the small tiny little park to the big park like the zoo. At least again, I'm talking about Mexico. I want to ask you how it is in Paraguay. But again, almost everything is free, and there's a lot of family stuff, family oriented stuff, again, like the zoos or the parks or the beach or the whatever it is, right? And then, like I said, even in the community within walking distance, they have all kinds of the stuff going on all the time. And again, for free, mainly all for free, unless you want to buy a taco or you want to buy or whatever. I don't know what this they have in for food in Paraguay, but
yeah.
but you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. So like we're in the USA, you don't see any of that. You know what I mean? It's like you got to pay for parking, and if you're gonna be selling something, you got to have your vendor's license and your food handler's license, and you got to pay the tax, and you got to this, and you got to that, and if you're gonna go to the zoo, you got to pay for this, and you got to pay for that, and it's like. So how is it in Paraguay? Is Paraguay like Mexico in that sense, where they might not be spending money on the sidewalks, but they spend their money on the parks and other things for the people, is or not?
Yeah, yeah. Well, because soccer is obviously huge here, so there's gonna be little canchitas everywhere, so little soccer fields. But then there's also plazas, right? But then there's also, and these are the nicest, are ciclovías, which are dedicated areas that are popping up around the city. That are beautiful. You know, they'll have the water fountains and the bike path and the walking path. There's one here in San Lorenzo where I live. So there's a few of those, and there's going to be more and more of those. Also in Paraguay, they're slowly starting to happen, but some of the what do they call it, boulevards, which has the in the middle, they're starting to make those ciclovias as well.
Oh, okay.
So
But
like,
ciclovias are, bike lanes.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And what you
so
were explaining earlier was just like a big park where you can go ride your bike and do all kinds of stuff with the fountains and like we have here too. Recently.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and some of them are absolutely beautiful. I mean, and even like church grounds can be like wonderful and beautiful, and people will sell you tea, empanadas, whatever, down here. So, yeah, very blissful places to hang out. Like you said, it's all free, um, and going, pretty much to any small town is really wonderful here too. There's a certain like magic to some of these places, and you really feel like you're going back in time. Some of the like Spanish architecture, old church on the hill kind of thing, overlooking the lake, and some of these places are absolutely beautiful. But yeah, yeah, there's a lot of free stuff to do, and there's I live in a pretty not directly, but a couple blocks, like a commercial area. So there's just mom and pop stores just up and down the street. There's a main grocery store, but it's just like everything is just like owned by some local. And
Yeah.
then even before I even hit the supermarket, which is not even a block away, there's like two bodegas. There's a restaurant, and then there's a lady selling little frutilla cups. There's like I guess like whipped cream and a strawberry kind of thing. It's like little ice cream cone
Yeah.
things, and then somebody else selling some clothes or something. So yeah, I mean you're getting the experience. When in the states, you have to either go to what we would call a flea market or a farmer's market, or a designated area for this. But this stuff is like everywhere. Like there's just mom and pop businesses everywhere, which is nice. And it's nice to not live in something where it's just Walgreens, Walmart, Target. And I know Mexico is a little bit more like that.
Yeah.
And we do have our chains. Don't get me wrong, like for some like grocery stores, but mom and pop shops are not dead here.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah,
So
small businesses thriving there just like it is here. Like for example, in Merida where I live, yeah, we have Walmarts and Wendy's and Home Depot and McDonald's. We got everything here. But like for example, you go to Oaxaca, not so much. You go to other parts of Mexico, it's similar to Paraguay. It just depends on where you're at. You know what I mean? And what part of the country you're in. But again, out here again, here in the big city where I'm at, yeah, I got all that, but I just got to go 30 minutes south and forget about it. You know what I mean? Like I'll be lucky if I find like just a grocery store type of thing. Um,
yeah,
one quick question I do want to ask you: how's the food in Paraguay, bro? What is the food? What is the food? What do you guys eat in Paraguay? Can you tell us about the food? As a foodie myself, as a fat guy myself, I want to know more about the food.
yeah,
And before you answer, I want to give a shout out to Aaron. Shout out to Aaron out there.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. By the way, Aaron, I see you're still listening. Email me, bro. All right, because I keep forgetting to email you. Email me. All right, so we got to do we got to do something together. All right. So shout out to Aaron out there. He said he went to go visit you, right? Out in
yeah.
Paraguay.
Yeah, back in March, him and his dad came out, and he was getting settled with the temporary residency. But yeah,
Awesome.
he mentioned the food parks. Yeah, when I'm looking down, I'm looking at the comments. So yeah, food parks are something that I just had a conversation with a guy who's traveled all around Latin America, and they're pretty common, or they're pretty unique. I mean, to Paraguay, they're these open areas. Sometimes they'll have trees, and they're mostly gravel. You're gonna have like 15 restaurants and a couple beer stands around, and they're really cool places. To get together with friends, invite a girl to, whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, they're super cool. And sometimes they'll put the big screen so people will watch soccer games. But even normal malls, like they'll put on big screens at the malls here, and people will watch soccer games or whatnot. And malls are different here. Like you can actually like get a beer and stuff, or hell, even a mixed drink at a mall here and watch a game. So, they're not as strict in America. Like America, you're not gonna find that. It's just shop, eat, and then get out in America. But here malls are cool, and yeah, I can't say the same in the U.S. But
But what's like typical food out there? Typical
yeah,
Paraguayan
sorry,
food.
sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, that's all right. That's
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. Sorry. So the food question. So yeah, we don't eat spicy. That's a very much Central America, Mexican stuff. But yeah, a lot of our stuff is corn based. The indigenous stuff like cornbreads. We have a lot of different versions of corn, this and that. Empanadas are obviously huge here. There's so many different kinds, and they're all amazing.
Okay.
uh, you can get those everywhere. Also, all the traditional plates, the rice dishes with meats, and then the tomato based sauces, the well, what do we call it? All the noodles and all that stuff is very similar to Italian. There's a lot of European influence in the food here, for sure. Um, yeah. Otherwise, besides that, a lot of similar stuff to America too. You got the burgers, pizza, all that good stuff. Some other more Latin American things like milanesa, all that's good stuff as well. So not really similar to Mexico or
No,
Central
no, no.
America.
Yeah, nothing at all. Yeah, no, yeah. In fact, it seems closer to like, again, more European, right? Southern,
Yeah.
right? Like Argentina type food, right? A lot of meat. Is there a lot of
Yeah.
meat up there? You guys eat a lot of beef, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this is like beef heaven down here. Great cuts of beef for very cheap, very good quality meat here in Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay. And yeah, so we're very spoiled in that, and it's a good thing because and same with eggs too. I haven't even seen a white egg since I've left the U.S. Everything is brown. Um, but yeah, meat is great quality, and everybody asados are huge. Our grill outs. Um, and but yeah, also fruits and vegetables are in abundance here as well. Very self-sustainable country, so pretty much almost everything is grown in Paraguay, and if not, it's a neighboring country. So we don't depend on supply chains for stupid things like food and grain, and like all that stuff is here in South America.
Yeah.
We don't need no bullshit ships going
Well,
through
I mean,
canals.
yeah, I mean, yes, I was gonna say because of like where you guys are located, right? The climate and all this other. I mean, you guys, you're very lucky in that sense, right? You can grow anything there, basically, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, certainly, and that's a special part about this part of the world.
Yeah, so
Uh,
I wanted to ask you like a side note on that because I mean I don't know if you have any experience in this or not, but like, do a lot of people have like gardens or do a lot of people like grow their own food and stuff like that as well, or not so much?
not as many as you would think, but I mean, you hardly even need to. I mean,
Okay.
if you want like fruits, like I have a tree right in front of my house that people are always picking berries.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a huge abundance, and yeah.
Yeah, like there's mango trees absolutely everywhere, and there's a season where they're just falling everywhere. Things that you pay $3 in America for, and stuff like that. So, like fruits are wonderful here. They're in abundance. If you buy them at the store, they're very cheap. Same with vegetables for the most part, and yeah, I mean it's just kind of blissful in that regard, and it's you're saving so much money, which I remember how much you would spend for just vegetables in the States,
Yeah.
or especially exotic fruits coming from tropical countries. So
And so real quick on cost, because I know earlier in the show you talked a little bit on cost, like can you just maybe it was well, I see we're almost an hour and a half into the show, so let's just I guess let's start wrapping it up a little bit here.
yeah,
But real quick, yeah, I wanted to ask you like the cost, like food cost, I mean, whatever off the top of your head, but like what other costs, besides your rent, can you go through everything, rent, light bill, water bill, whatever, transportation, food. Just curious,
yeah.
what it was. So what like start off with like what your monthly budget is or what your monthly, expenditure, I guess, right?
Yeah, so well, since the dollar took a hit, fucking sucks. But yeah, the dollar lost about an eighth of its value. So that'd be what 14% or so, something like that. So readjusting for that, rent used to be around 360 for me. Now it's a little bit closer to 380, maybe getting up to 400. Um, so yeah,
And
that's the
what
biggest.
is that? What does that include? What does that $400 include?
That's just to live here.
No, no, but like
But
meaning like how many bedrooms? How big
oh,
the? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I live in a brand new house. You guys should check out that video if you on my channel. And
By
so
the
yeah,
way, I know as I keep interrupting. He has a Ryan has a channel. Please check it out. Obviously, I'm gonna have some links below. I'm gonna put more links down below. But yeah, please, go check out the his channel and check out the tour and check out all that, so you can see exactly what he lives in. So for $400, yeah, sorry.
yeah, the brand new house built up to the year, electric fence. I got two bedrooms here. It's a one bath. And brand new kitchen. You know, there's some things I had to purchase, like because in Latin America not everything comes with the house like it does in America. Like I had to buy my own fridge and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, but that's just for rent costs. But then everything else, all my bills are extraordinarily low. In fact, I was just sending Aaron a screenshot of my electric bill last month, and I think it was like $12 or something like that.
Wow,
Um, and then my water was my water bill. Yeah, my water bill was like $6
wow.
or $5 or something
Yeah.
like that. Because we're very blessed too. We have an aquifer
Mm.
underneath here in South America. So water is extremely cheap, and electricity is cheap too because of the hydroelectric dam. So we get lower energy costs than the rest of the world really, and so we're blessed in that regard. Yeah. Otherwise, trash is separate. Trash is an extra couple bucks a month, and Wi-Fi because I got like 600 megabytes per second, something like that. I think I paid for Wi-Fi and cable TV together. I want to say like $30, 35.
Wow.
And then what else? What else is
Food.
food? Food. I'm probably dropping a few hundred, maybe 300 a month or so, like on groceries, that kind of thing. But then if I'll eat out and stuff, add on an extra 150. It's gonna be that's gonna be more than locals, but who aren't gonna eat out as much or order. But yeah, so altogether, you can live under here as long as you're not like carrying debt from the U.S. like under $1,000. You can certainly live here.
Wow.
I would suggest 1,500 to be comfortable and 2,000 to live how pretty much however you want. Is what I tell people. But now the dollar took a hit, so I'm leaning that 1,500 number to more like 2,000 for people. But yeah, otherwise, it's a very cheap country. In fact, one of the cheapest and most value to your currency in the entire world and in Latin America. So very cheap. Oh, like phone bills an extra $12 or something like that a month. And then again, I get way more data than I actually need to use, so I could like bring that down to like $5 or maybe $4 or something. That's just in case like I go live or like I might travel or something. So I just kind of hold on to it at that price. So altogether, besides the rent and besides food, but like all the other bills, Wi-Fi, TV, phone, electricity, water, and garbage usually comes to $130 or under, all those included.
Wow.
So if you're combining that with my rent, that's all that together is under 500 a month.
Wow.
So and then the food and all the rest is whatever it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, transportation, fun, whatever. Going to go out
Yeah,
and go on a date, whatever it is, right? Yeah.
transportation is extremely cheap here. I do have my car, but it's always fucked up, and I'm hardly ever using it. But Ubers are like literally $1 to like $5. Even if I go like 25 minutes to downtown, it'd be like five, maybe $7 tops, something like that.
Yeah.
So very very cheap transportation. If you don't have a car, which I don't suggest you get a car. But yeah, so it's a cheap life. It's a certainly a lot cheaper in America. I would say it'd have a fourth the cost. And but again, I'm living in a way bigger place than I was
Yeah,
in America. I was living in a tiny little box,
yeah,
and I was paying four times the price,
yeah,
or three times or whatever. But so it's a hell of a change, and you get so much more out of here. My dog is happier than ever. He's roaming around outside right now, just looking at the cows probably or whatever. Uh, so he gets to have his little roaming space
yeah,
and all that. Something that in the states all I could ever afford is the tiniest little apartment that I
mm,
could possibly get. Um, and I used to just hate it in the states how much I used to have to pay for simple living you know and yeah, that's one of the best benefits is cost of living for sure. Yeah.
yeah, man. Yeah, and again, it goes off of the freedom and the quality of life, man. The fact that most people can afford to live a more dignified life out here. It doesn't matter, the locals, us, whatever. Obviously, we have a little bit more spending power. Again, depends, like I always, it's funny because I talk to other Mexicans out here, and a lot of them make more than I make. But still, it doesn't matter. Even if they're making a lot less than me, everyone still has a better quality of life than whatever they're would be having in the USA in a similar situation. And so obviously you work, you have a good paying job that you have now, and you work online and stuff like that. And so I can only imagine like how an amazing life that you have right now living in Paraguay, where in the USA, with that same job, like you said, you're living in a box, barely fits you and your dog. And out here, you know what I mean? Like you're in
Yeah.
Paraguay, and like I mean, you got money to spare. Your dog is out there playing with the cows and making friends out there and shit.
Yeah, he's watching them.
Yeah, man.
um
So, but anyways, but yeah, I wanted to, wanted to, start wrapping this up because it's, we're already gone over an hour and a half, but,
yeah.
I know it's fun. Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. I wanted to say, you guys, before, we go, real quick, remember, guys, I go live again on my other channel. Oh, wait, hold on a second. All right, I go live on my other channel, Jose Unleashed. All right, we're gonna go live over there in about 30 minutes. All right, so I want to, give a quick reminder of that. So anyone that's interested and wants to, hear me chatting about, the things that I chat about, go join me over there. We're gonna go live as soon as we're done over here. But what was I saying? Or was I going to say something else? Oh, hey, you're back. You're back online. I was going to say, do you have any final words? Is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap this up? By the way, shout out to everyone out there in the audience. Glad that you guys were able to make it. And again, have a listen to the conversation between me and Ryan. But before we go, Ryan, is there anything else you wanted to say to anyone in the audience?
Yeah, I think that it is, this whole moving abroad thing for so many reasons uh, is incredibly beneficial to your life, especially the whole residency thing, getting that in your back pocket, holding on to it, setting yourself up for a dignified retirement. Um, and yeah, I know that there's a lot of people who kind of watch us for entertainment, probably. But I hope that people start taking some of the action items to be able to do this. And me and Jose are kind of crazy. Like we both kind of chanced it in our own ways. But at the same time, there comes a point in life where whatever point that is, whatever age it is for you guys, uh, try your best to take a chance. Me and you both did, and me and you are both living where we're living. So have some faith. Also, I suggest starting a YouTube channel. I know a lot of people are very self-conscious about how they may talk, look, speak, whatever. But you'll get over that, and it can. You're building a personal brand. You're creating transparency, and you're creating something that could generate some money one day. Again, it's a long process. Jose will tell you that. I'll tell you that, but it's incredibly beneficial. I got Aaron. I harped on Aaron to get his channel started, and he does. The Hispanic expat. My other buddy Simon is Canadian. He hit over 100 subscribers for his channel. He has a couple of videos out there. Simon in Paraguay, and I think that it's YouTube is still in its infancy. relatively.
Hmm.
A lot of people may look at YouTube like, oh my God, it's oversaturated. But you got to think about YouTube in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. We're going to be some of the first,
Yeah.
especially. um, and that's kind of why I wanted to get on it. Yes, I could have waited one more year, saved up more money, had a little bit more cushion, but I also wanted to get in the YouTube game because, like you said, when in Mexico there is 5 YouTubers, now there's 5,000
Yeah.
YouTubers.
Yeah, and look, and
So
for me personally, the reason I did YouTube, a lot of it was cathartic, as I was going through my struggles, of living out here. I had nobody, nothing, whatever. At the very least, I had, again, I was making my videos, I was connecting with people, I was interacting with people, and it was helping me, I was sharing my struggles and sharing my stories. Other people would do the same thing, make connections, and like same as you know what I mean? And again, I tell people all the time, like, and you know this as well because you started your channel. You're not gonna be making any money, like for a long time. It's gonna be a while before you really start making money. But it's not that. It's about all these other things. And again, it's all depending on the individual. Some people, I get it. I mean, this is not for them, but for a lot of people out there that do want or need or they have a voice, they have thoughts, they got things that they want to say, and nobody is out there listening. Trust me, there's people listening out there. There's 8 billion people on the planet,
yeah,
all right? And again, like you said, I totally agree with you. The YouTube and all this other stuff is brand new. I mean, it's still relatively new compared to everything we're going to be seeing in the future. And yeah, man, especially with the AI stuff coming out these days and all that, it's like, yeah, man, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's even more of a need, for things like YouTube, and the personal connection. Because again, as we're losing it on one end, we can, we're still reconnecting on the other end. And again, even though this, the USA or China or other places might feel like dystopia, right? Because all the technology, again, you don't got to go far. I can just go to a village 30 minutes away from my city. You're in Paraguay, same thing, and that's it. You know what I mean? You're disconnected from everything, and you realize, how small of a world we're really in, and what's really important out there. You know what I mean? And this is just a tool. For me, an old fart like me, I mean, come on, man. I never thought in a million years that we would have this technology. I mean, I knew we were going to have it, but just the fact that right now, I mean, look, you're in Paraguay, I'm in Mexico. People are watching us from all over the world. We're doing this live, and we're doing this out of the comfort of our homes. You know what I mean? With just basic technology. I mean, who would have thought, right? Like several years ago, we would be here, and look at us now. So, I mean, again, yeah, I totally agree with you. For just in the as just a point of making connections with others. You know what I mean? That alone. You know what I mean? That helps. And again, not just, it helps us, but we help other people. And that's the thing. It's just, building a community, man. That's the thing. It's like it's part of the culture thing. You know what I mean? Like if you got to be able to, be able to interact with other people and all that good stuff. So, all right.
yeah,
Enough of all that. Like we're gonna wrap this bad boy up, guys.
okay,
Before we go, again, can you tell us a little bit about your channel? I put the link in the chat. I'll put the link down below in the comment section and all that good stuff. But can what is it
yep,
like? Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So again, I'm Ryan Aranda, and my channel is My Best Life Paraguay. You guys can find me obviously here on YouTube, but also Instagram. I do consultations for those who are thinking about Paraguay. I get to let you know whatever you want to talk about. And so that's always a link in my descriptions for my videos. I go deep into culture. I go deeper than a lot of other folks do. So, if you're wanting to some of the uh, you know true insights to the country, I may not have them all, but I got quite a few that I haven't seen other people touch on. So yeah, check out my channel, and maybe you're more into the pricing, houses, whatever. But there's something for everybody on my channel. And
Yeah,
again,
and again, yeah, the perspective of the living abroad. That's the thing. It's also very important. I got a lot of people that watch me that are not moving to Mexico. They're they're moving elsewhere, but just the life experience of living abroad, same as you. Like you offer a lot of that. From your unique perspective, and yeah, you know what I mean. Just life abroad because you touch on a lot of subjects. I know you talk about certain things I don't talk about on my channel and vice versa. I know that good stuff. So again, it's always good to check out his channel and. You'll get to learn a lot more stuff and not just about Paraguay but about life abroad and so on and so forth. So all right,
definitely.
all right.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. And yeah, we'll get up and again at some point.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We'll be linking up again real soon, and I got to come on your channel soon, all right? So I can, talk to your audience and all that good stuff. So, all right, guys.
Appreciate it.
Hey, you already know the deal. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please continue to stay awesome. Again, check out my website, check out the channel, and you already know. I'll see you here on Sunday, and I'll see you here next Thursday. You already know we're always uploading on the channel, and I'll see you here on the other channel. I mean, remember, we're gonna go live in a few seconds on my other channel. So I hope to see you guys there. And thanks again for watching. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys on the next one. All right. So all right, hold on. It's like, hey,
See y'all later.
there it is. There we got Gizmo back there. Hold on. Where are you? Oh, there, wait. There. Are you there? No. There it is. Okay. Hold on. There you go.
All right.
We got Lambo
See you guys
back here.
later.
Lambo got too drunk. He's out here on the controls. Bro, drop the crack pipe. Jeez. All right, guys. Thanks again. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.
All right, you guys. And yeah, see you later, Jose.